So, Denise, mental health has been a hot topic, especially in the corporates for the past couple years. I'm curious, what does mental health mean to you?
Think mental health to me is a very big personal journey, but I think that it's something that is in danger of becoming a bit of a fad, a trend that people talk about without really having that introspective.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's one of those things where, like I said, it has gotten quite trendy. There's been a lot of resources and spotlights done to it. I'm not in that world, so I can't comment as to whether or not actual resources have been effective in that extent. So I can't comment to that. But I agree with you. It has a risk of potentially being a trend and then, what happens thereafter.
Yeah, exactly. I think with mental health, it's such a broad topic, right? Because it encompasses so many facets. It's very nuanced, I think, as with most things that are important.
Absolutely. Like I said, there's a bunch of different factors, and I'm happy to talk about some factors from my point of view. I'd love to hear as well. I think one of the factors that has impacted my mental health over the years is obviously the job. You have the usual things like stress and things like that. But one thing that I realized looking back that has had the biggest impact on my mental health is my boss, for better or worse. And I've had some amazing bosses over the years, and I've had some not so good bosses that have tend to ridicule me or bring me down, and not just me, but the entire kind of team. So I think that definitely had a impact on my mental health, especially early in my career when maybe you don't have the confidence in maybe your abilities or in your personal skills and things like that. So those are one of the things that I think had a big impact on me, my mental health.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's really about when it comes to work, most of the time, it's not really about the actual work. It's about the stakeholder management, the people relationships. I always say to my team and anyone I talk to, really, that our job is like 85% people management and relationship building and kind of being able to connect with different people at different levels for different purposes, especially in the early years of your career. You're vulnerable. And for me, particularly, I think Asian culture, not to generalize, but my personal experience has been that eager to please, eager to prove yourself kind of mentality, especially when you're joining a new industry or a new job. Bosses play such a pivotal role, right? In that. And I think I've been very lucky throughout my entire career as I've made transitions. I've always been supported by my bosses, and that has had a positive effect on the mental health. Having that safe space, having that kind of trusted mentor advisor role, it can do wonders not just for your confidence, but your ability to reflect on how do people reach where they are in the workforce and how can they do it with kindness? How can they do it not just respecting other people at a basic human level, but how do they take it one step further to have that positive impact on other people's mental well-being as well?
Yeah, I agree. And I know some of your bosses, and I think they're very kind and supportive people. I can relate with you. I've had a mixed bag. I think many people either watching or
Yeah.
listening to today's episode will probably have experience where maybe they don't have the most supportive boss. And that's the challenge for them is how do you navigate that? And sometimes there isn't a clear way to navigate it when you have someone of a certain ego or a certain level that kind of looks down on their staff.
Yeah.
Things like that may not be you not be able to change or influence in particular because of their
Mhm.
personalities. That's why I always tell people there are other opportunities in this world. If you feel
Yes.
like you are being put down or you feel like you're being disparaged and things like that, then there may be an opportunity for you elsewhere in other places where it's a more conducive environment. So, yeah, it's always my advice for the young folks.
I completely agree with that. It's about knowing your value and believing in your value. Because if you're going to come across all types of personalities in work and in life, and I think the first thing that not everyone's going to like you, not everyone is going to want to work on communication with you. And that is not a reflection of you. If you are doing your level best to try, not to change your ways, but to alter your communication style to maybe suit somebody else. You shouldn't be doing it at the expense of your peace or your sanity. Oftentimes, I feel like if we have a bad experience interacting with somebody, whether that's somebody higher up at a peer level or from a different department, I always tend to try and see it as there are so many unseen factors of my personal life that somebody at work is not going to understand. So vice versa, if somebody has been mean to me, I like to, at level one, give benefit of the doubt. Maybe this person has a bad day or has something else going on in their life. And it is not an excuse to treat me badly, but the way they speak and the way they act, that's a reflection of them. It's not a reflection of me.
And that's good advice. It's something I'm still trying to do even at my age is understand that not everyone will like you. And the key is not to take it personally. I think even when you're getting like feedback on different things, some people
Hmm.
would be very blunt and they just may not like your style. So it's, yes, it's hard to accept oftentimes, but I think it's incredibly powerful once you do accept that. Now, another thing I want your thoughts on, and this is the challenge of living in a place where we are very blessed, I
Hmm.
think for many of us, but I have seen people who, on the surface, have it all. They have the great job, they have the great marriage, kids, et cetera, et cetera. And something inside still doesn't feel right. Where, once again, on surface level, you think, oh my gosh, they have everything. And then
Hmm.
internally, when you speak to them, there's a darker side or there's a, situation where they're feeling depressed or not just quite right. So I'm not sure if you've experienced that. I've seen it personally with some of my friends over the years where I assumed, oh, life is perfect. But then, there's been some, you know, dark moves that they've made as a result of that kind of long-term depression. So not sure if you've
Yeah.
seen anything like that.
Yeah, I am really comfortable to share, and I think it's an important part of my journey. But I have been diagnosed with depression, with major depressive disorder. I am on medication for it. It's been a journey of about 3 years or so now. So, yeah, on the surface, very high functioning in that sense. I can still go to work, I can still do my job, I still maintain my key relationships with family, with my husband, with my friends. But inside, it's always this a sense of I'm just coasting along. I'm being moved along by my life. And the aspect of agency was not there. For a while, I couldn't really see anything that would truly make me what I thought of as happiness. So I used to do a little bit of a mind exercise with myself. I think a lot of us maybe kind of default to logic to figure things out when the emotions don't sit right. So for me, it was a mental exercise of saying, okay, what can I or do I look forward to within a day? And then I would come out, I'll draw blank. And then I go, okay, within the week, again, draw blank. Within a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 10 years, etc. I would keep playing that mental game with myself. And for the life of me, I could not find something that would truly, at the core of my being, give me that sense of enjoyment or happiness. And so when I couldn't do that, even though, as you said, on the surface, very blessed with a strong support network, with a good job that I love, with people who love me and care about me, I couldn't find it. And that's when I realized, okay, something is deeply wrong, right? It's if I can't think of a single thing and yet on a logical level, everything seems fine, there must be something else going on. So it's a realization. I think it's a realization that this is not something I can solve by just taking time out and talking myself through it. I need professional help. And I think going against the stigma of that, right? My parents are not by any sense super traditional or strict, but it really speaks to the change in culture. When I said I'm not feeling great, I'm gonna speak to somebody, I want to get professional medical help. They said, "Oh, do your employers know?" And I said, "Yeah, actually, I went through my employers to get external assistance because they do have that program, and I wanted to use that as my first port of call." So it is, I think, sometimes a struggle. Number one, a struggle to even sit down with yourself and admit that there is something that this is something mental health or depression in my case is something I needed help with, that it is a problem. I need to get help and that it's okay to get help. It's okay to speak up and say, hey, I'm not living my best life. And that's not what I want for me.
Yeah, I think the cloud analogy definitely resonates with me where it's foggy, you don't really see the other side,
Yeah.
maybe the positive side sometimes. I'm curious, you mentioned you seeking professional help. May I ask what was the trigger in your life where you feel like, okay, now I need to see someone externally to support me on this?
It was actually a mentor of mine at work who noticed a bit of a change in my behavior. At work, I was still performing quite well, but she said, the way I see you working, you're always working at 150%. You're probably not realizing it, but you're burning out. And to me, work has never been an identifiable trigger for my depression, but it became an escape from my own emotions. Being productive and being good at work became a way to distract myself from what was truly going on inside. So, that whole kind of rhetoric that I've grown up with in terms of productivity equals progress, equals success, equals efficiency, equals I'm doing something good in my life, that became the overarching narrative. So when I hit that point and she said that to me, and no one had said that to me before, it made me stop and think. And she said, there is help. You should get help. And it's no strings attached, right? You can try it out. Go and speak to a counselor, go and speak to a therapist, see what they recommend. And you can just try it out, right? There's no harm, it can't hurt. So that was really the moment where it was like the watershed moment for me, where I decided I need help. So that was the first instance. I actually took 2 months off work last year, at the end of last year, 2020, for a mental health break because I had a very bad depressive episode. And again, a trigger warning here, it was intrusive thoughts. I am not sure whether this is too much to hear. I literally sat on the couch and I was writing goodbye letters to people I love in my head, and tears were just streaming down my face. I even thought about how I would pack up all my belongings in the house so that it would be easier for my husband to deal with the aftermath. And then I looked up at the clock and it had been an hour and a half. I had just zoned out and gone through the entire process. And I said, whoa, this is number one, of course, it's not normal, but also it had never escalated till that level for me before. So went to the psychiatric consult and I got medical intervention that day itself in terms of trying out a different medication as an emergency medicine and then also altering the dose of my regular medicine. So professionals are out there. They know what they're doing. They can give you the perspective when the depression takes over and you can't trust yourself in some sense to make the best decisions for yourself.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. Part of that in terms of the working nonstop. I think people who know me know that I never stop, and I think one of the reasons for that is if I completely stop and I don't do anything, I get anxiety. And
Hmm.
so I always tell people the worst way to torture me is just to have me do nothing and stare at a wall all day. I will go crazy. I don't know if it's inherent my personality or how I manage emotions, but yes, I tend to do the same thing where I tend to work a lot and keep myself busy. So maybe you don't have any negative thoughts or not necessarily negative thoughts it's more in terms of uncertainty. I
Yeah.
think that's the big challenge for me is thinking, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens, et cetera, et cetera, and spending too much time thinking about it without actually doing anything in the moment. So that's for me how I kind of compensate is to work
Mhm.
quite a lot. I am slowly trying to do mindfulness and things like that, or at least better understand it, such that I have a opportunity to slow things down because I'm getting older. No one is a robot, so we tend to burn out physically, mentally. I think it happens to everyone at some point. So I'm trying to avoid that, which is why I'm trying to slow things down. But going back to what you're saying is I had seen my friends and my ex-girlfriends have mental health issues when they were really young. So one of my friends tried to take his own life,
Oh,
and I still remember carrying his body into the hospital
oh gosh.
when I was probably in high school.
Oh.
And then I think I've written about this one time, but my
Mhm.
ex-girlfriend yeah, she's no longer with us, so I had seen it earlier on, and so, once again, from the surface, I thought they had it all, they were very happy, they were
Mhm.
wealthy, et cetera, but then obviously something was going on inside, and sometimes, to your point, sometimes it's good that you had a mentor that can flag it because oftentimes you can't really, from the outside, see what's going on and see
Yeah.
what's going on in their heads. And even though I was very close to them, I perhaps didn't see that. I didn't pick up on the warning signs and things like that until It was too late in a couple cases. Yeah, I think that going through that experience when I was young reinforced the importance of mental health
Yeah.
and the importance of, like you said, seeking help or counsel. Because I think many times we see that, or at least in my case, maybe it's the older generation, as a weakness, a sign of weakness,
Mm-hmm.
especially among men are very notorious of bottling it up
Mm-hmm.
inside and just holding on to it,
Yeah.
which obviously doesn't help in the long term. I think that's one of the stigmas or challenge for many folks where they feel like it is a sign of weakness if they do seek help, which obviously is not the case. I think it is
Yeah.
important to get the proper advice or medication, whatever it is that's going to help you break out of that. If that makes sense.
Thank you for sharing all that with me. I know it's not easy. I think also in the day and age where we are constantly exposed to negative news, to news about deaths, to we are constantly surrounded by media that talks about death, destruction, things like that. And if you experience grief in personal ways as well in your life, it does leave a mark. I really believe in this connection between the mind and the body, right? That somatic kind of connection. The body keeps score. So a lot of times when we want to work to keep ourselves distracted, that is the body trying to keep going in order to avoid dealing with the inside. And I think what really, when you asked me to come on this podcast, I immediately was like, yes, absolutely, yes. Because I think conversations like this should happen more often, right? Between friends or whatever it is. If you can't find somebody, I would encourage to find a way of expression, healthy expression that you as a person feel comfortable with. It could be drawing, it could be writing, it could be listening to music, it could be exercising. Something that you can do to get that energy out of you if you can't find somebody to speak to. And especially, I think that the point that you mentioned about men traditionally being expected to bottle up their emotions, I think that is hopefully now changing and hopefully will continue to change. Everyone has emotions, right? Everyone has relationships, everyone has challenges. It doesn't make you any less strong of a person if you speak up, speak out, and it's for yourself. I think that traditional male role as protector, it is slowly changing, right? It's not just males that have to protect.
Mm.
And if you look at it in that traditional kind of patriarchal sense where males are the protectors, then how can, at that logical level, how do you protect others if you don't even protect yourself? Then what's left of yourself to protect others? Right. So I try to, if people, I've been very honored that in my life, I've had quite a lot of people come to me and talk to me about this. I think because also I've been very open about my depression, tell them to try and find different types of outlets because you're probably not going to always want to go to the same person to talk about it. So having different options for yourself at a point where you don't want to start looking for options, I think that's important. It's part of being prepared and taking care of yourself, right? There are many ways to do that.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point about obviously women have to protect the family as well too. They have that inherent
Mhm.
feeling. But one of the reasons I wanted to do this series is to, like to your point, have people open up and then talk because I think many times we think we're alone in feeling like
Yeah.
this. And when you hear stories of people going through something similar, you're like, oh, okay, it's not just me
Yeah.
thinking like this or having something experience like this. And so I think that helps you in a way feel not so alone that you can relate to those other people and
Yeah.
hopefully through this today's episode we can learn how people are managing it. I'm happy to share how I do it as well. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Obviously, you mentioned medication, but what are some of the things that you're doing to manage it on a regular basis?
So I have adopted a policy of if I feel it, I say it. And my husband has been very supportive. So literally, if I have an intrusive thought, I literally say intrusive thought, and then I list out the thought because I acknowledge I have the thought, but that thought is not me. I say it out, I've said it, but it is not my identity. It's not that disassociation, but it's not tying depression as my identity, which I was in danger of doing because I was depressed for so long. And depression is such an alienating disease. You don't recognize the way you feel. So what I tried to do was I have a feeling, it is a depressive feeling, but I am not a vessel of depression. I have depression, but the me who I am is not depression.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you sharing. Maybe I can share some things that I've done over the years as well too, just for hopefully it helps some
Yes.
folks. One of the things I did, this is probably when I was a teenager, is journal. So like you said, write down your thoughts because oftentimes they're rambling around in your head, difficult to really think clearly. But I think writing it down, getting it all out what you're feeling was helpful for me, I think, in my teenage years when I was going through anxiety and stress and all of that. So that has helped. Another thing that I try to do now is be more mindful of what I'm grateful for. So obviously my family, my health, relatively good health. I have a roof over my head. I have food. I try to think of that in terms of the things that I'm grateful for. And this sounds a little bit cheesy. Oftentimes in your career, especially when you're doing things that are a bit more high risk, there's inevitably some failures.
Yeah.
So what I tried to do is, I think I did this a while back, make a list of things that I'm proud that I did myself. So whether
Hmm.
it could be running a marathon or starting a business or whatever it was, I think I had a list of things. And so when I do have a setback at work or career, professional wise, I try to look back in that and say, hey, you know what, this is an obstacle that I'm facing now. But at the same time, here's what I've done in the past. So I know that I can bounce back from this
Yeah.
situation. So it helps to have a small confidence booster when you do get
Hmm.
situations where you do get set back from life, which is inevitable to happen to all of us.
Exactly. I think that's such a great idea. Being able to list accomplishments that you're proud of, that you've achieved at a time that is not right now in the moment, right? I think everything is a journey. And I think for me, the hardest lesson I learned from dealing with depression, it's a non-linear journey. And that took me such a long time to come to terms with because I've always been, and I'm sure some people out there are as well. You think you put in the effort, these are all the things I should be doing. I have done them. Why am I not getting better? But it's a non-linear journey. So I really love your idea of having that list of things that you're proud of doing. And it can be related to work. I also think that it can be related to anything in life. So for me, for example, when the depression hits, daily tasks, super simple daily tasks become like a big mountain in front of me. I have to mentally prepare myself for so long to do something as simple as keeping folded clothes into a drawer. So one thing that I've tried to do is I have told myself, look, I can schedule time to go for a meeting. I can schedule time to meet a social obligation. I can schedule time to do the extra work or that I want to do or to watch a video or watch TV. I've got time for that. What's stopping me from making time and scheduling a plot of time to do nothing? So that's something that I've started to do, whether it's half an hour, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. I literally come into this room that I'm in now, my home office, turn off the lights, put the blinds down. I put my phone away. I may put music on. No dog, no husband in the room, just me. And I do nothing. If my mind goes somewhere, let it go. But after that set time, then I go back to my daily routine. So it's really, I don't know, maybe it's like an adult version of a self timeout that I've given myself. And that has helped. That's one thing that has helped.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think making time for certain things, it's like I said, could be making time just to stop moving
Yeah.
is helpful. For me, it was making time to exercise more because I
Mhm.
realized past couple years ago I had some health ailments and I just, if you saw my schedule, it was like nonstop work. And so I said, okay, this is not sustainable over the longer term. Blocking out, time in the calendar for whether it's meditation or exercise or
Mhm.
going out with friends. I was guilty of that for several years, especially when starting the company, because I felt like, oh, I was guilty. If I felt like if I took a break, I was letting, the team down or was letting my family down.
Mhm.
But to your point, you have to make those sometimes because, like I said, no one is a robot. You can't go
Yeah.
24/7. You need to take a break sometimes. And oftentimes we don't do it unless, like you said, we take our self timeouts, which I think all of us need to do at some point.
Yeah, I think your that kind of physical connection again is coming in with that exercise. Moving your body can change how you feel, even if you don't feel like it will in the moment when you're deciding or dreading going out for that exercise or that walk. Really, will it really make a difference? And I think it's that the challenge is just to do it. If it doesn't make a difference, it can't hurt you because you are already feeling this way. But if it does make a positive difference, then good for you. It's something that, it's like a plus point to your day. I think when COVID hit and a lot of people had the opportunity to work from home in that sense, it became a very different kind of cloistered environment, very kind of isolating. So I think changing it up once in a while from your daily routine, I think that can help as well. Being set in, being a little bit constrained by the same place that you're at every day for hours and hours, it can take a toll on how you think and how you operate as well. And I think that is still something that I'm learning to accept, right? That despite knowing all these things that could help me and that has helped me, it's not going to work 100 of the time.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you were saying that it's not a linear process. It's like the ocean, there's ebbs and flows, there's good days, there's
Hmm.
not so good days. And so I think that's okay to understand that life is like that. It won't be perfect every day. It wouldn't be life if it was like that. Denise, I really appreciate you coming on today's show and sharing your experience. I think it's going to help a lot of people who are watching and listening. So thank you so much for that.
No problem.
Absolutely. And for those who are going through a similar situation, please feel free to find help in your local area, talk to friends, or if you know someone who's going through a situation, please feel free to share this episode with them and hopefully it'll help them out. So thank you guys so much. Take care and we'll see you very soon. Bye.